Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Sinikka Waugh of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Even Better podcast. This is Sinikka Waugh, your host. And on behalf of all of us here at Your Clear Next Step, the Even Better podcast is one of our ways of helping you have a better workday. And I am just thrilled today. I've got Wright back with us today. Anne, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for asking. I am thrilled to be back with you and your listeners.
So delighted. So if you have missed Anne's previous appearances on our podcast, go back and look those up. You can find them in the Spotify or the Apple podcast, however you access your podcasts. Go look for Anne Wright. She was on sharing in a conversation with a couple other folks as well. So you can hear her then, and you can hear her recently as well. And I won't do spoilers alerts. You go look it up, and we'll talk about some great things that Anne brings to the table. But today we're shifting gears a little bit because we hinted at it in some of our prior conversations. But Anne has a particular passion around volunteerism that is just really a treasure. And so today's topic, we're going to talk about 5 ways to get the most out of volunteering. So Anne, I know you as a leadership expert. I know you as a team development expert. I know you as someone who helps people really understand themselves and move forward. I know you as a trained and certified coach. I know you as the recent president of the Iowa Coaching Federation in the Des Moines, Iowa chapter, or the Iowa chapter. I know that you have a passion for volunteerism. Help us connect the dots here. How does this tie together? Why are we talking about volunteering today?
Honestly, I believe that volunteering is one of the most important things we people, you and I, everyone can do. I'm happy to say that my family has that in common. Not only my family that raised me, yet my husband and my son too. And people, as you've listened, I'm a big quote person, so I'm going to kick us off, but I have it right next to me, and I have something that hangs in my office. I found it, I framed it, and I think it really pretty much sums up what we're going to talk about, yet we're going to go into a lot more depth. It says, if you want to be happy for an hour, go watch TV. If you want to be happy for a day, go to an amusement park. If you want to be happy for a lifetime, go out and help others. And it really does resonate with me, and I'm not even sure who gets more out of volunteering. The people that receive things from you, or a person that volunteers, or you as a volunteer, because I know it really does bring a lot of joy and satisfaction to my life.
Absolutely. I see your passion, and I hear you talk about it, and I have seen you volunteer. I've seen you, in your volunteer role. That is not a paid role, that role that you've been doing. I know that. Thanks. And even through this tough last year, I've seen you delight in that service is it's not a burden. It's not a thing that weighs you down. It lifts you up and encourages you. So I see you live this out on a daily basis. And I think part of why I wanted to make sure that we were talking about this with our listeners today is because I think at the end of the day, it does create better work days. Right? Breaks are great. A coffee break is great. A refresh break, a reset break, go for a walk. These are all great things. They can help you have a better work day. Go watch a movie, take a day off, go to an amusement park, go to the state fair in the summer, right? We do this as a team. We try and go to the fair together when we can, or at least meet up at some point at the fair. So this is a break, right? We get that. And we also know that the day-to-day work days, our organization as a whole, we live to help people have better work days. That is an act of service, and it's our job. And we know that when we stop even our job and go volunteer and go serve and go help in a food kitchen or our local pantry, when we can help and sort things there, or serve, volunteer for a couple hours at Meals from the Heartland, that our whole team, right, it lasts longer. That energizes everybody, and it allows us to have that sort of higher level of sustained joy.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, that points just to what that quote was saying, doesn't it?
Right. Yes. And by the way, I am a Hallmark Christmas movie junkie. So truly, I love a good Hallmark movie. And my husband laughs at me. He's like, they all have the same basic storyline. Why does everybody watch them? And I said, because they inspire hope and happy endings. And like you, I love those amusement parks too. I'm not a great big roller coaster person, but I do love a good amusement park. And like you said, the volunteering, oh my gosh, when we get to the relationship part, it's amazing, the relationships. Like you said, you all go and have a good time, and it strengthens that bond, which transfers over to the workplace too. And it does support us all in having an even better workplace experience.
Absolutely. So let's get right in. We're talking about 5 ways to get the most out of volunteering. So the first way is to give of your time and talents. Let's talk about that. What does that mean?
To me, there's lots of value in giving. And I want to really share with your listeners, because we're all at different places in our lives. It is not the amount of time. It's that you give something, because time's priceless and no time is too big or too small. And when we talk about giving of the time and talents, I asked my husband, I said, I have the opportunity to talk on the podcast. And I said, okay, don't overthink this, Doug. If you were a listener, what would you want to hear? And he brought a couple things to light, which tied specifically into this. When you give of your time and talents, he said, be honest with where your skills are and what you have to offer. Because he is a big volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. What he has to offer to Habitat and what I have to offer are 2 entirely different things. Yes, I can lead and I can follow, and I am following if I'm volunteering there. But, going back to giving, there are so many ways you can give your time and talent. Find something, and this is something else that Doug and I talk about, and that when we talked about this, he shared, find something that you are passionate about. There are just a plethora of volunteer opportunities out there. And I want to encourage everyone to look for them and yet find something that you enjoy. Maybe you're looking to serve on a board. Maybe you're looking to serve like on a community or civic board or in the school system. Do you have talent in marketing, in accounting, in leading, in Habitat, in building? So, what is your talent? What do you like to do? At church, you can donate meals, you can be a lector, you can organize events. Or my life has had different seasons. Before I got married and then had a child, I was really involved in lots of committees and the JCs and a lot of things during different nonprofits. When I had Noah, and while he was in school and living at home, my volunteerism was invested in the School Improvement Advisory Committee, the committees where he was at, like in high school, it was cross country, swimming, and track. So school was where I invested my time. Now that he's a senior in college, I have shifted back to the community. So what are your talents? What do you like to do?
Right. It's so great. And you pointed to something that I think a lot of people don't realize about volunteerism is because you've signed up for something, it doesn't mean that you've signed up it forever. And it doesn't mean that you have to, it takes all of your time. There are small things that can be done. We've got a group here through our church that helps feed those who are food insecure in our community, and every second Tuesday of every month. And there are gals who bake cookies or bake desserts, and faithfully every single Tuesday they bring those desserts. But it's a baking cookies, right? They don't have to show up to prep in the kitchen. They're not there all day. They're not there in the evening, with the cleanup and those sorts of things. They're not there every single week. It is the time it takes to bake cookies, which these women in particular love baking cookies, and they are really, really good at it. Now, I am not great at baking cookies. I don't love it. I am a cook, not a baker. And so I will happily volunteer to, hey, let me make the side dish, or let me help with the meat portion or whatever. Please, I beg you, don't make me bake. And so I do the other portion, and it works out so well, right? You play to your strengths.
Right.
You play to your strengths. And then the seasonality that you talked about in our, you do different things before kids. And then during kids, you volunteer in the kids' classrooms, you teach them, you show up, and you let them learn by the fact that you're showing up at what's important to them, that then they also want to learn that going forward, right?
Exactly. We have a church in our community in Ankeny that they have a garden. And when they first started, I believe the first year they donated maybe a couple thousand pounds of produce to the different shelters. I think a couple of years ago, they were up to between 15 and 18,000 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. And they have groups come out, like you said, maybe you only have an hour or two. And I use the word only conservatively. Maybe you have an hour or two. That's what you have.
That's what you have to give. Mm-hmm.
Go out and help at, like I said, the garden. And you brought up the food insecurity. We have helping hand boxes around our town. Mm-hmm. They're pink. Mm-hmm. I think there are around 14 or 15 of them, and they hold food.
Okay.
So people will donate food to them.
Mhm.
They're on the corners and it says, leave what you can, or take what you need, leave what you can.
Mhm.
And that is something that's really important to our family. We usually, buy different things, and then we'll go out and stock 4 of them every so often. They have a Facebook page. But like you said, you do what you can, and I really, really want to share. It's about doing something.
Yep, absolutely. It's about doing something. So
Right.
think of your time and talents, what
Yes.
you have and what you feel comfortable sharing, you share, and it can change over seasons.
Mhm.
And it plays to your strengths, your talents. Maybe at this season in your life, you don't have time, but you have dollars. Or maybe you don't
Right.
have time to serve on committees, but you can help create a marketing flyer that you have skills and you could do that marketing flyer in 5 minutes. Whereas someone who would have to struggle with the technology, it might take them, many, many hours to do that little tiny. If you're playing to your strengths and giving of your talents, the joy that comes even in that sort of volunteerism, knowing that you helped make someone else's day a little better. Super
Right.
stuff.
The other thing that I would encourage you is, and I did not come up with this, and I would give credit to the source, but I can't remember where it was. I read somewhere that somewhere in your life, maybe just one time, everyone should do something anonymously.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a really great idea. I know people, and people are grateful for the things that people volunteer for. And yet it's not about that. It's just doing something for somebody else.
Yep.
And paying it forward. So yes, I agree. And by the way, I don't volunteer in the choir. I lecture for a reason. I tell people are very happy. I just lecture. I don't sing loudly, at least.
That's fun. So let's move on to number 2.
Yes,
Receive much in return. Receive much in return. And I think here you're also going to talk about those roles when you're volunteering, like with a committee or with a board, and when you're serving alongside them. Let's talk about what that is.
I teach a couple classes at Iowa State, and I have students that will say, Mrs. Wright, I don't have experience. People want experience. How do I get experience in organization or marketing or leading, things such as that? When we talk about receiving things from volunteering, let's say that you want some experience in marketing. I mean, maybe you have some background. That's where it comes in, being honest with, I've got some background or some classes I'd like to contribute. And so you may join a committee or an organization as a volunteer. You're going to learn leadership skills, organizational skills. And so you're going to gain, and that's what we talk about receiving, and the networking. You never know who you might meet in some of those meetings. Right. They might know of either like a position or just can make a connection. In ICF Iowa, our chapter, I just talked to Dawn, and she is going to introduce her brother and I so that my son, who's interested in business analytics, can talk to him. So it's all about, and I don't want to give anybody the impression that somebody gets somebody something else. It's about connecting. And so by volunteering, you connect, we learn new skills. And interestingly enough, and this goes way back, I will date myself when I say these years, but it's okay. When I was at Des Moines JC in 1992, Hurricane Andrew hit Florida really hard. And we were one of the states that collected I think we sent between 8 and 10 semi truckfuls of clothes and non-perishables and just things to Florida. And you might think, well, how is that receiving? I hope I don't cry when I say this, because in 1993, when the floods of 93 hit Des Moines, and we lost water, and I mean, there was water everywhere and there was water nowhere. I remember the day because I was in the parking lot when they rolled in. Because of what happened in Florida, they put a process in place to work with the city. If another disaster like that ever happened, they had a process that they could mobilize different resources.
Sure.
Well, in 1993, lo and behold, the first time they implemented that process or that system was not for the state of Florida. It was for the state of Iowa. And on the semis, on the first semi that rolled in from Florida, there were 5 of them with water, Gatorade, Powerade, just a lot of things that we needed that we didn't have. It said on the side of the truck, Florida JCs, returning the favor.
Oh, lovely.
So I share that with you. We didn't give to get, yet when we needed something, we received. So the people in Florida learn new skills by putting together a process and working with their city, their county, their state. So they're learning new skills, yet they helped us in a time of need. So we really receive, and I know we're going to talk about relationships later, but relationships, the opportunity to use our skills and develop them and network.
You bet. Well, and I may be speaking out of turn here, and maybe this is the relationships one, but didn't you once tell me that you met your husband when you were volunteering? So you received much in return.
Yes, I did. And that actually, yes, that's exactly. And that's fine because, the thing about this particular, not this particular podcast, they always go together. So many of the things we're talking about just kind of go together. Yeah. But yes, not only did my husband and I meet through the JCs and volunteering, I know probably 5 or 6 couples that met through the JCs. And not only did they meet, they get married, they're still married. We're all friends.
Oh, that's wonderful.
In fact, I know some of the couples I knew before they knew each other. Oh. I knew each spouse, but before they each knew each other, it was just, Oh, so the relationships that you can build can really be lifelong.
Lifelong, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Well, let's move to number 3.
Yes.
So if you've just joined us in this podcast, we're here with Wright, and we're talking about 5 ways to get the most out of volunteering. We talked about giving of your time and talents and receiving much in return. We're moving on to the 3rd one, which is to be empowered and empower others. Talk us through that a little bit, Ann.
And this one, it relates to everything that we've talked about. To empower ourselves, we have the authority, the ability to do things. And when I talk about empowering others, we also give other people the opportunity to learn new skills. Because now I'm going to flip it. We talked about joining things for us to learn new skills. What about people that want to learn and that are now going to work alongside of us volunteering? If you serve on a board, we have the opportunity to share what we've learned with other people. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be sharing some things that I learned as president from the technology standpoint. And some people that may be listening to this may go, she's going to teach about technology. Oh, this could be scary. It's going to be the very basic technology, but it's very exciting to share with other people. And I joined a group of coaches not long ago, and it was fun to now have something to share with them. So as we're volunteering, we learn, we explore new possibilities and new skills, and we also have the opportunity to help other people learn. I think about the food boxes. We have I'm not really a big fan of the word power, but we have the ability and the blessings to do things so that you place them in the food box and other people are now empowered to go get the food. Yes, some may say they depend on it, but there's still a lot of independence. They have the choice of where to go. And my husband not really laughs, but it's important to me. I make sure it looks like a little grocery store. I make sure everything's all lined up and easy to see because it should be. Mm-hmm. I remember a time at church, we're involved in the Family Promise group where people that are down on their luck, they go, they look for jobs, they find resumes, and they stay at churches while they're in transition.
Okay.
And I remember one in particular. It was a happy day and a sad day. It was a mixed blessing. We had a family who it was so exciting to celebrate their baby's first birthday. Mm. We made a cake, we gave them gifts, and it struck me that I've never had to depend on anyone for gifts and to have someone else make a cake. And when I talk about empowered and empowering, I'm grateful that we were able to do it, not me, but we were able to do this. And I'm also grateful that we were able to give everything to that mom. She gave it to her child. She celebrated. We were able to empower her while she was in transition. Yeah. And so it's really about, and like a Habitat for Humanity. Yeah. People work right alongside you to have a home. It's a partnership.
Absolutely. Well, and I think about the experiences with professional volunteerism. And I know I know that you and I have talked about the tears that filled your eyes as you watched the success of the leadership board beyond you, right? Because you had empowered them, the ones that came after you. They were standing on the shoulders of giants, and that's a level of empowering as well. And I think about the work that I did with the PMI Central Iowa chapter and the board leadership that I did there, and the people that worked with me on my sort of team then took over the roles that I was doing and have then continued to elevate and be empowered to lead the chapter. And it's such a joy to watch that growth.
I love that. And thanks for reminding me, because you're right. In my younger days, not that I'm old, but in my younger days, you think, and I just talked about this with somebody else too, we may have a tendency to think, well, we all want to do the best we can. Mm-hmm. We all want to be successful, and we want the board and organization to be successful. In my youth, it was easy to think, oh my gosh, what if the next board does even better than we do? Because will that make it look like we didn't do our job? That's youth and inexperience in my brain talking. Mm-hmm. What I have since learned, like you just said, our job as a board is to empower people. Next year's board, I want them to do a better job, not better than to help the organization continue to grow. Yep. And so I thank you for bringing that up, because you're so right. And like you said, there's the nonprofits, there's the boards, there's the city commissions, your board, the ICF, the ATD. I mean, all of them. There are so many places to volunteer. I don't have enough time to do it all. So you have to choose your passion.
You have to choose your passion. You have to choose and play to your strengths, but you can empower others, and you really can leave things better than you found them in that kind of volunteer situation.
Yes, which is what in my opinion, we are supposed to do.
Yep, for sure. So let's move to number 4. So 1 was giving of your time and talents. 2 was receiving much in return. 3 was being empowered and empowering others. 4 is on treasuring and appreciate what you can add to your skill set. So let's talk about that. I mean, there is something that you get out of volunteering. Let's talk about that.
Yes, it is a sense of accomplishment. Mm-hmm. It is about growing skills. Mm-hmm. I believe my leadership skills are better than they were a couple of years ago, which is what they should be. If I'm learning and doing my job, it's a great way to maybe even learn more about managing a budget. So it's really about looking at and valuing what you receive in addition to what you give. Mm-hmm. It also, honestly, it helps you appreciate what you have. Sometimes you think, we all have our challenging days. I mean, everybody does. And yet it also, sometimes when I volunteer, I think, I'm very appreciative of what I have. And, oh my gosh, I do have things to offer. It helps you with your confidence. Whenever we volunteer, we should always do the best job that we can. Yep. And even though people are not, quote, and I do say, quote, paid for volunteering, because it's volunteering, mm-hmm. you still receive a different type of, quote, payment. Mm-hmm. It's not in dollars. It's a feeling inside of, I'm so grateful that I am able to do this. So I treasure the time spent with people, which is going to lead us into the relationships in a minute. And I treasure the opportunity to grow my skills, to lead, to learn more about websites, about having a virtual assistant, just all the things that you learn through it, and really treasure and appreciate that skill set. When we talk about adding to the resume, employers want to know that you do care about your community. Yep. In some way. Again, time is different. I understand that. They want to know, yes, you're involved in your job, mm-hmm. and they know you have a personal life, and what can and do you do for others? Yep. Are you involved in your fraternity or a dance-a-thon or a civic board? And I don't mean it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're involved with, as long as you're involved doing something.
Absolutely.
That's really where it is with appreciate and treasure.
Yeah. Appreciate and treasure. You're adding your skill set. You're adding to your resume. You pointed out that employers are often looking for individuals when they're doing that hiring. They're looking for someone involved and committed. And I'm also seeing on the flip side. So if you are a business owner or if you are a leader, those who are vetting you because they want to work for you potentially, or they're considering you, they're looking for their next workplace home. Our current, the youngest of the generations are known for their demand. The youngest of the generations that are in the workforce right now are known for their demand of civic responsibility. So they will look at an organization, and if you're a small business owner and your organization does not demonstrate that you're giving back to the community, that you're volunteering, that you care, you might fall out of the list of places that this top candidate would even apply for. And as a leader, the leaders that demonstrate that they care and they get involved and that they serve and they volunteer, and maybe even do that as team building activities, those are more likely to be a draw to those others who have a desire for service as well.
Right. I love that. That is so true, because not only is the employer interviewing the potential employee, like you just said, as an employee, do I want to work here?
Yep.
So, and the servant leadership is really rising to the top. People want to know that their leaders are there for them, not just themselves.
So let's take a look at the fifth one. And we were alluding to that. We keep coming back to relationships, and we've said a lot already about relationships.
Yes.
It's about growing strong relationships. It's about growing together, growing strong relationships. Let's talk about what that looks like in volunteering.
You know, when you volunteer somewhere and you have passion and you enjoy what you do, the good news is the people you're volunteering alongside of, they also have the same passion. And some volunteer opportunities, you will meet the person or people, and that may be the only time you see them. And that's okay.
It's okay.
We just volunteered at Chuck's during the Thanksgiving, and depending upon when you listen to this, but Chuck's has an annual Thanksgiving giveaway of meals. Some of the people see each other a lot. Some of us see each other once a year. But going back to those relationships that you can strengthen when you join an organization or volunteer for the same either project or in the same group, you meet people, you become friends. As we alluded to, I met my husband through volunteering, as I know several couples that have met their husband through volunteering. That is not why we volunteer. It was a great benefit, I guess, of volunteering. But one of the reasons we have that in common, find similar values, similar interests. And so I think it also strengthens families. Noah and I have done the Agape Gardens together. There's Eagle Scout projects, meals, wrapping gifts. I mean, there's all types of things that you can do to volunteer, and you make friends. There's a group of women, and in this case, it's women. Doesn't have to be women, but just this example. We met through the JCs, and years ago, I was going through a tough time, and we started getting together around the holidays, a core of us. And it varies depending upon, the date and everything. But there are around 15 of us. We have gotten together. I believe it's now 32 years.
Oh, wow.
And I've really dated myself now. I think I was like 6 when I joined. But I share that because we were just talking about it, and we met through volunteering, but we stay together because we're friends. So it's just building strong relationships, friendships. You have fun. There is a common bond. And many times the people that you meet and are friends with, you can call whether you see them once a year or whether you see them every month if you need something.
Yeah. Oh, lovely.
Yeah. And at the workplace too, I forgot, because at the workplace, it does, like you said, it really elevates the workplace and makes it even better.
It does. It does. I think about the times that, sometimes when you get your head down and you're focused on your work, when you step away for a minute and you shift your focus, and it's not about me and our team and what we're doing, but we've shifted our focus into what can we do to serve this other group, this other entity? How can we help here? You change your scenery a little bit, you change your focus, and you have maybe different conversations. I think the depth of relationship building that happens there is just so beautiful. And it doesn't even have to last a long time. It's not like these are hours and hours and hours. You may be volunteering for 52 minutes and you're still having the opportunity to work alongside someone and get to know them in a new way and build that relationship.
Yes, that's right. It's not always the length of time. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, Anne, this has been a joy. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation.
Thanks.
So as you're just listening in, if you've just joined us, you got to go back and you got to rewind to the beginning because you got to hear the whole thing. But we're talking with Anne Wright about 5 ways to get the most out of volunteering. And I tell you what, this is not a woman who just talks about volunteering. This is a woman who shows up. And when I see her volunteer, I also know that she is getting the very most out of it. And it brings her so much joy. And then you can't help but be joyful by being around Anne when she's volunteering. So for sure, making better work days. Thank you.
Thanks. And I know that you usually ask at the end. I'd like to share this quote: giving, one of life's greatest rules. You cannot hold a torch or light another's path without brightening your own. And I really believe that volunteering brightens the path of so many, and it will definitely brighten yours just beyond anything you imagined.
Oh, thank you, Anne. What a beautiful way to wrap that up. So
Thank
what's
you.
making you even better right now? This is the Even Better podcast. So I got to ask that question at the end. What's making you even better these days?
One of them, seriously, is meeting you.
Oh,
And I mean that one of the true joys of being able to talk and, share things on the podcast. I know I said this earlier, I think before we started recording, but truly what's making me even better is meeting you, learning about what you do, being involved, and remembering that it really isn't about me.
mm,
It's just, there's a much greater purpose out there, and it's not about me. And when I was a JC, the last line of our creed, I still live by it. And this has helped me remember. And the last line of that creed is service to humanity is the best work of life.
mm.
That is truly what makes me better. It's just remembering it's a service to humanity.
You bet. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Anne. And for all of you who have been listening to us today, thank you for joining us in this podcast. If you haven't heard Anne talk before on her other topics, go find those other podcasts and enjoy those as well. And on behalf of all of us at Your Clear Next Step, we hope the rest of your day is even better.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.